There was once a man named Ezra who was known for being the most diligent clockmaker in his village. His hands were always busy, crafting intricate gears and springs, perfecting each tick and tock. His clocks were admired far and wide, for they never missed a second. But over time, something changed. Ezra's world became filled with nothing but the ticking of his clocks. Every moment was measured, every hour accounted for, as though time itself was a force he had to conquer. There was no room for laughter, no space for rest. His life had become a race against the clocks he created. One day, exhausted from his endless work, Ezra noticed something strange. One of his oldest clocks had stopped ticking. Curious, he inspected it closely. The clock was perfect, no rust, no missing pieces, and yet it was completely still. At the back of the clock, tucked behind the gears, he found a small note. It read, "To find what you're missing, follow the path to the Garden of Time." Ezra had never heard of such a place, but the words tugged at something deep within him, a sense that perhaps there was more to life than the ticking of time. So, he decided to follow the note's instructions. He left his workshop, walking until the village faded into the distance. As he wandered further, he began to notice time itself felt different. The trees swayed lazily, their leaves falling in slow, swirling patterns. The sun lingered in the sky, casting a warm, golden light that stretched across the land. Eventually, he arrived at a stone gate covered in ivy. Above the gate, an inscription read, "Welcome to the Garden of Time." Ezra stepped through and found himself in the most extraordinary garden he had ever seen. It was a place where time flowed differently. In one corner, flowers bloomed slowly, their petals opening like a slow breath. In another, trees stretched toward the sky, as if years had passed in moments. But what struck Ezra most were the people scattered throughout the garden. Some sat quietly, watching the clouds drift by. Others danced joyfully, laughing without a care in the world. Time didn't seem to control them here. They moved freely, without the urgency that had ruled Ezra's life for so long. He sat on a bench, feeling the weight of all the time he had spent working, rushing, trying to beat the clock. For the first time in years, he didn't feel the need to rush. He simply existed. A woman approached him, her face peaceful and wise. She smiled softly and sat beside him. "This place is beautiful," Ezra said, his voice soft. "But I don't understand it. How can time move so freely here?" The woman looked at him with kind eyes. "Time is not your enemy, Ezra," she said knowingly. "Time is something to be lived with, not against. Here, in the Garden of Time, we remember that life is more than hours and minutes. It's about moments. Those moments of joy, peace, and wonder. They are just as important as the work we do." Ezra felt something stir within him, a realization that had been buried under the weight of clocks and gears. He had forgotten what it felt like to enjoy time, to let it flow naturally without trying to control it. "How do I take this with me?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "I can't stay here forever." The woman smiled again. "The garden is always within you, Ezra. You just have to remember to tend it, make space for joy, for wonder, and for rest, and time will take care of itself." Ezra sat quietly for a while, breathing in the stillness of the garden. When he finally rose to leave, he felt lighter, as though a burden he had carried for too long had been lifted. He returned to his workshop, but things were different now. He no longer raced against the ticking clocks. Instead, he made time for walks, for laughter, and for watching the world move at its own pace. And though his clock still ticked perfectly, Ezra had learned that the true art of time was not in mastering it, but in learning to live with it. Now, as you lie here, take a deep breath and let go of the rush of the day. Like Ezra, remember that time is not your enemy. Time is yours to live with, not against. Feel your body relaxing into the bed and let each breath come naturally, without hurry. This moment, right now, belongs to you. It is a moment for rest, for stillness. Let go of the need to control time, and instead, let it flow around you, carrying you into sleep. There is no rush. No need to chase after anything. Just breathe and allow yourself to drift away. Good night.